Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vishwas Tripathi, my colleagues on the governing body of BRICS CCI, dignitaries and participants in this very august, occasion. This is a very important occasion because the CSR is now taking shape in the world. India has taken the lead in this line, and I'm extremely grateful and delighted that Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee is a part of our, team. He is going to educate us more about this subject. And since he's the one who is credited with the writing of the CSR legislation and is starting a new initiative in this domain, our salute to him and every other distinguished soldier of the CSR campaign who are passionate about this cause. I am so grateful that Dr. Susi Singh has taken this initiative to shoulder this responsibility of carrying forward a very laudable objective of CSR on behalf of the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry. As a founder Director General of BRICS Chamber of Commerce, it gives me immense pleasure to share that our Chamber's CSR vision and journey started even before CSR mandate came into operation. I'm really very fortunate that we can take this credit for ourselves and for our chamber. As you all know, CSR is not a new concept. It has been coming down for generations and since centuries that India has been following this, and the rest of the world is also following in one way or the other. But then there are certain problems which we encounter when you implement this kind of laudable cause. The problems are mainly relating to the implementation of the government mandate. What is happening is that, sometimes we find that bigger companies which have a big amount of money which they have to spend on the CSR purpose, sometimes they create their own entities, on which they spend most of that money in catering to that kind of activity, which does not serve the overall interest of all the people who are needy and need their help. So this is an object. This is there, and that I have a suggestion to make. Maybe this suggestion can be sent to the government to consider that 50% of that surplus, which is created for the purpose of serving the interest of CSR, may be allocated for those who are registered NGOs and doing good work, who are registered with either Niti Aayog or with some other accredited organization. And that 50% should go only to those organizations which are registered with them, so that the credibility aspect is not compromised. So there should be credible organizations, they should be registered. And therefore, this kind of thing, that a total liberty given to any company which earns so much money that they can spare that 2% of their profit, gross profit, is not used only for their captive organizations. So this is a suggestion that it could be noted and maybe considered and forwarded to the concerned department of the government. I would also say that, among the various objectives are sustainable goals set up by the United Nations. There are many other things which can be done under this banner, CSR banner. There's no limit to those, items and areas which can be catered to. But of course, education remains at the top of everything, because everything starts with the letter A or B or C, that the rest of the things follow only from there. I will give an example that, recently some friend of mine who happened to hold the charge of IG prisons, that in Delhi, there is a place which is called Tihar Jail. Tihar Jail has about 15,000 inmates, about 15,000 there, out of which about 80% of them are under trial prisoners. They all are awaiting judgment from the court so that they're finally either convicted or released. But in the meantime, they are spending time in the jail. And you'll be surprised that when I was told that 80% of these people who are under trial prisoners, they are illiterate. So literacy directly accounts for so much of smaller crimes. They are not always the people who are under trial prisoners are big criminals. They may be small things, small theft or something done, and for which they are in the jail. Or there are minor complaints because which they are in jail. But their things are not being heard, and therefore judgments are not coming. In the meantime, they remain under trial prisoners. But what is important is that if they were educated, maybe things would have been different. Maybe they would have found some alternative avenues for employment or sustainability. So this is an area which should receive the highest importance. That those NGOs which are engaged in providing primary education or literacy among them, because there's so much of good example being told to me that they say that when the prisoners, under trial prisoners and other prisoners are brought to the courtroom, for hearing, at that point of time there is a bus which carries them, which bus has some cage kind of thing that they can see something on the road to the court. And when they see something which is, they read a place where it shows hotel or hospital. Now somebody is not totally literate. He's not able to make a distinction between a building showing hotel or showing hospital. But then the person who can read it, he tells, oh, look at this is hotel this, or this is hospital here. Others also look at it. And then when they start learning the alphabets and everything, they start becoming more and more educated. So therefore, education is something very, very vital and important for anybody who is going to benefit from this stimulation, the realization which has been created for them. So this is an area which should receive the highest priority. Next to education is only the survival, that is the health. And the third one would be, in my view, skill development for self-employment and every other thing which supports a man physically and mentally. So these are the areas which should receive focus. And I have nothing more to say about this. I will only say that it has been a great initiative taken by Dr. Sushi Singh, is one of our very valued governing body member, and I want that let this subject be a talking point for everyone who has a stake in the country, that every citizen is being affected by this. So therefore, I wish this workshop, this webinar, all the best, and hope that further deliberations by all these team panelists and members would be contributing a lot to the success of this story. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very encouraging words. Now, moving ahead, it is time to start with the actual session being held today by the Center of Excellence in CSR and Sustainable Development of BRICS CCI. And to steer the same, I call upon our popular and passionate president of the Center for CSR, GBM member of BRICS CCI, Dr. Sushi Singh. Good afternoon, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Jaya. Dignitaries from BRICS CCI, embassies, and all other academic, business, and media organizations, seniors, colleagues, and friends, a very bright afternoon and welcome to spring. So moving ahead with the unique and extremely doable suggestion regarding CSR activities for the policymakers made by our own Director General BRICS CCI, Dr. Madhukar. Today, when BRICS Chamber of Commerce Industry is restarting its CSR journey, as President of Center of CSR BRICS CCI, I need to apprise you all about the Chamber's vision regarding its CSR contribution in alignment with India's CSR mandate. Businesses are universally recognized as the primary engine of the economic growth and development to alleviate poverty. And as BRICS continues on the path of regional economic integration, businesses are increasingly expected to contribute not only to the wealth generation, but also to solving some of the region's pressing challenges. So BRICS Chamber of Commerce Industry, through its Center for Excellence in CSR and Sustainable Development, has been promoting and advocating corporate social responsibility since 2013, much before it became a buzzword. The Center further aims to provide end-to-end CSR project implementation solution and helps its members to project partnership through CSR Hub. BRICS CCI CSR Center for Excellence has been working as a resource center to provide a strategic direction to the development of inclusive and holistic CSR practices, create synergy by providing platform to various stakeholders to share their experiences, learn, exchange ideas, and support partnership that add values to the businesses, and recognize and reward business enterprises contributing towards sustainable and inclusive development, with a special mention of BRICS nation through its upcoming BARA, that is BRICS Annual Recognition Award. Yes, we at the Center for CSR are truly excited about our upcoming BARA Award, as we have received partnership offers from a number of international agencies. Today, as we begin with our CSR ESG Dialogue 2.0, I take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed panelists for today's event, including myself. A brief introduction on my part would be important to set the context for the synergies to begin with. I'm Dr. Sushi Singh, and as the founder director of S2 Education Chance and Science Social Responsibility and Research Center, governing body member and president for Center of Excellence in CSR and Sustainable Development, BRICS CCI, and also as India ambassador of an international organization, we do, which in support of UN Women promotes, supports, and celebrates women in 144 countries. I have sincerely tried to remain passionately committed to making the CSR projects more meaningful, social activities rather than just a corporate law requirement to be complied with, while moving ahead with a focus on facilitating quality education to the underprivileged, promoting the cause of education of women of all ages with an agenda of women partnership in entrepreneurship. I also do invest my time and energy for people with special needs, differentially abled individuals. Currently, I'm planning to hold NGO training sessions and social entrepreneurship, and I'm seeking associations to make the foundation and CSR vertical intervention meaningful and successful. Now, I'm excited to introduce our eminent speakers and esteemed panelists, and for opening remarks, we have with us the most renowned figure in the space of CSR, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, the CEO, Anil Agrawal Foundation of Vedanta Group, former Director General IICA, former Secretary of Government of India. Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, widely acclaimed as the father of corporate social responsibility in our India, was instrumental in framing and issuing the CSR guidelines for public sector enterprises. He played a major role in the inclusion of Section 135 in the Companies Act of 2013 and in the framing of the rules thereafter. Everybody knows about it. As member of the United Nations Global Compact Governing Council, he has been associated with all the major national and international initiatives on sustainability, SDGs, and ESG. He is associated with the right now as the CEO of Vedanta Foundation. He is associated with the company's initiative for reducing carbon emissions to zero by 2050, environmental stewardship, introducing innovations for evolving green business models, and taking steps to achieving net water positivity by 2030. He shall be delivering remarks on the theme CSR Insights of the Decade, Today and Tomorrow. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sushi. It really is a pleasure to be here on this platform today. Heartiest congratulations to BRICS, to Mr. Madhukar, whom I have met before. Very happy to see you here, Mr. Madhukar. I remember our earlier meeting, and I know how passionately you are committed to the cause of CSR, SDGs, and ESG. Wonderful to have this platform with us. Sushi and I have been deliberating on putting this particular platform together for quite some time now. And we have with us a galaxy of very, very eminent speakers, people who were associated with the evolution of the law, the way it came about here in India. So in some ways, what we're going to do today will be quite a historic kind of webinar. And it is really a proud privilege to be here today amongst all of you. Without further ado, what we're looking at now in this particular session. We are calling it CSR ESG, a roller coaster ride or a smooth journey. And let me assure you that whenever you want to do good for society or good for the planet, it is never a smooth journey. It's always a roller coaster ride with lots of ups and downs. And you will hear this now from our speakers as they come up one after the other and as I invite them. Now, initially, what we will do is that we will take up the story of CSR as it evolved in India. How is it that it became a law in the first place? How did it come about? What were the circumstances leading to that? And then I will ask Gayatri and Nikhil Pant and Gitanjali Gaur, who were all part of that very seminal exercise, to tell us more and fit in parts of the jigsaw. So that will be a very exciting story. We'll put it together in narrative form. And then we have two very brilliant speakers, in fact, three, Darshan, Raj Gilda, Samir Unale, and they will give us perspectives on different aspects, strategic philanthropy, sustainability goals, CSR activities. So we will have a lot of interface today, and I'm sure that our listeners and viewers will derive tremendous amount of satisfaction for all that we are going to say today. So let me begin. And of course, you can introduce Gayatri and Nikhil and Gitanjali. Would you like to do that first? And then we can start the conversation, or would you introduce them as we call them up?
Sir, after your opening remarks, sir.
All right, then. So let me say that the idea of the mandation of CSR as we know it today originates in a 2-page file, which came to me sometime in the month of October, way back in 2009, when I was secretary in the Department of Public Enterprises. I say 2 pages because all it said was that CSR is a growing field, and perhaps we should look at it from the public sector's point of view as to what they are doing. And I remember I was freshly posted there, absolutely no idea what CSR was. I mean, even what the acronym stood for, I had barely any idea. So I kept the file aside and I said, on some Saturday when I come in and I'm disposing of all the files that I couldn't have time for, I'll also look at this. And maybe that Saturday came a week or two later, I looked at it. And somehow it excited my interest so much that I started looking at everything that I could find on CSR on the internet. The mind became like a sponge. I started reading up everything I could find. And so all about shared value, Michael Porter, who was then the leading thinker on CSR, and all of that we kept absorbing. Then I widened the circle and I brought in the CEOs and the CMDs of the Navaratnas and the Maharatnas. And I asked them very clearly that, what is it that you are doing in CSR? What does it mean to you? How does your management look at it? And of course, they gave me a lot of their views. But I soon found that CSR as such meant different things to different people. People addressed it also differently. I'll give you 2 very small stories. While reviewing the activities of one of the major Maharatnas of the time, at the very end of the review, I asked their head that, what do you do for CSR? And he said, sir, CSR, we do so much, but we do it only between 28th and 31st of March. And I said, really? What is so sacrosanct about these dates? And he said, sir, that is the time we get to know what is the leftover money that we have not been able to spend. So in those 3 days, we start writing checks to all the people who are our contacts. And I said, oh my God, that's fantastic. And that is how I termed the phrase checkbook charity. And I said, that is precisely what CSR should not be. Another very small story. I was in Rourkela reviewing the activities of a very prominent public sector steel company. And again, I asked the CMD at the end of the review, do you guys do any CSR? He said, yes, sir, you can't imagine how much we do. And I said, great. Can I see something? He said, yes, sir. Lunch ke baad, let's go in the car and I will show you. So after lunch, we took off in the car and he took me to a school and he said, sir, this is our CSR. So I said, who studies here? And he says, well, there are our employees' children, sir. Terrific. what else can you show me? We'll take you to a hospital, sir. Okay, let's go to a hospital. We went there and I said, who are the patients here? He said, sir, these are the family members of our workers and staff. And so I realized that so much of CSR was actually human resources, HR, and benefits to their own employees. And really speaking, nobody had a clear-cut vision of what CSR should be. And that is why, with the cooperation of a small team in the Department of Public Enterprises, we began to write the first ever guidelines on CSR, which have been written anywhere in the world for corporate entities. And that is how the story of CSR begins. We put it into operation from the 1st of April 2010. That is how we introduced CSR into the public sector system. And I still believe that that was the best way for us to go, because charity really then began at home. When we took it to the corporate world, they were not able to say that, public sector is doing nothing. Why are you topping it on the private sector? So we began it in public sector, carried it on for some time. And then, of course, the opportunity came when we were deliberating for the Companies Act of 2013. So in all of 2011 and 12, what we should do for corporate India then came into a strategic bit. Of course, Gayatri will also tell us the story of how the Ministry of Corporate Affairs at that time took the initiative, coalesce together. But just a couple of more points which I thought I'd mention. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. In fact, India being a unique country with a CSR mandate, it is so important to know the real story of emerging CSR. And we are really thankful to you for letting us know the real beginning of CSR legislation background. And with the checkbook charity's real story, you make our day, sir. So next in row, we have with us Gayatri Subramaniam, Director, Association for Women in Business, Director, International Center for Socially Responsible Businesses. Ms. Gayatri played a major role in development of national voluntary guidelines for social, economic, and environmental responsibilities of businesses, and business responsibility reporting framework that was mandated by SEBI for top 500 companies listed on Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange. And also she played role in establishing National Foundation for Corporate Social Responsibility, NFCSR, a unique platform created for government, corporates, and NGOs for taking up development and sustainable initiatives at a national level. In fact, she's the one who has been awarded Women Leadership Award by World Women in 2016. Today, Gayatri shall speak on the topic evolution of CSR and ESG, of which, of course, she has been a part of. And she would be talking about that whether CSR and ESG evolution is a roller coaster ride or a smooth journey for India till today, when we are going to complete a decade. Thank you. Over to Gayatri.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shushi Singh, and a very warm welcome to all of you. And thank you for having me at this platform. It's an honor and a privilege. And when Dr. Chatterjee was talking about the old days, I was remembering that I was working with Ministry of Corporate Affairs in Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, a think tank set up specially for the, corporate governance affairs. So when I went to Dr. Chatterjee in 2010, and the meeting which he spoke about, wherein all these Maharatna, Navratna, and Mini Ratna company CEO was there. I was there, and I could see the expressions on these corporate honchos' faces, that what is the CSR? Who is going to do it? So that is the time when a third actor, that is NGOs, were brought in. I remember that was again Dr. Chatterjee's idea to create a CSR hub at TIS, so that all the NGOs could be registered and they can be provided with all these public sector undertakings could be provided with implementation partners, right, sir? So in 2009, when these voluntary guidelines were, released by then President of India, that time also she said that it's going to create a revolution. And after 13 years, I can say that this has been a roller coaster ride, but at the cost of boasting, I would say, under Dr. Chatterjee's guidance. Today, in fact, day before yesterday, CSR2 form also, when it came in, we know that it is here to stay. This has created that paradigm shift. This is here to stay. And it is here to stay for good. and in fact will do good to everyone, to each and every stakeholder concerned, to each and every who is going to take up this journey. So in 2010 also, when DP guidelines were released, I was there, and the entire strategy which Dr. Chatterjee had put in fact, indirectly, I was, allowed to be a part of it with the World Bank consultations. 2011, when national voluntary guidelines were released for the corporate governance part of it, in which the entire principles were, the entire guidelines were articulated in the form of 9 principles, talking about, all the aspects of business responsibilities. Today, we call them ESG guidelines, which talked about ethics, transparency, accountability. It talked about stakeholders, shareholders, consumers, customers, life cycle of products and services, talked about environment. It talked about responsible business lobbying. It talked about like cradle to grave and cradle to cradle approach of the corporate. So all these guidelines, when these were released, again, as Dr. Chatterjee said, all the corporate were saying that we are doing this, but they did not know actual meaning of it or actual strategy on how to do it. And that is why business responsibility framework was, written at IICA. And I remember Dr. Chatterjee had already joined as Director General and CEO. Ministry of Corporate Affairs did not accept these BR. So he sent me to SEBI. He said, you go and speak to SEBI, because that is also another regulator, Financial Regulatory Authority of India. You go and get it at least, mandatory for corporates who are listed on National Stock Exchange and Bombay Stock Exchange. I remember that one morning we went and met with, whole-time director of SEBI, and we introduced this, and we said this is something which is going to, have a positive impact on the listed companies. And that is how it was mandated for 100 first, and then it became 500. And then later on, after a few years, it is 1,000. And now we know the talks are on that all the entire listed companies on Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange will have to do BRSR, the revised form of it. So what I'm saying is, what started as a small, aspect, it become a whole-time, full-time, business as usual aspect now. And of course, the journey of converting it into mandatory by taking it as a compliance. I remember section 135 is just one of the sections of 470 sections in the Companies Act. But as Dr. Chatterjee always says, that is the one which created the most chaos. It shook all the boards, and what we are talking about, we are just talking about 2% of 2% companies who need to, follow this mandate, who fall in the ambit of this mandate. So it had been a very, very interesting journey, because I was fortunate to be a part of each and every, aspect which happened. The National Foundation for Corporate Social Responsibility was again conceived by Dr. Chatterjee and his team. And it was again a very Herculean task, I would say, because that was a very, national platform which was given to integrate the efforts of all the actors, the government, the corporate, and the third world, that is NGO. But again, as we all know, there's a huge trust deficit between NGOs and corporates. So it was very difficult to bring them on the same platform, on the same lines of thinking. But then, yes, again, at the cost of boasting, I would say, Dr. Chatterjee, kudos to you and to our team. We have done it. Today, we stand at a platform, at a landscape wherein these companies are supposed to do CSR. It is showing, it has changed, it has come for here to stay and would stay forever. It's ever evolving. I would not say it has evolved. It is still in the evolving stage. So with that, I'll, close here and over to you back, Sushi.
Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you so much. Thank you for the story of having the third actor, the NGOs as implementation as a partner, and beginning of the ESG concept, along with the cradle to cradle approach of corporates. Really, really nice. Having said this, I'm sure there is a lot more exciting. A lot more in for our consumption in this Dialogue Series 2.0. DG sir, please mute yourself. And
वो क्या हुआ, प्रॉब्लम क्या हुई?
Thank you, sir. And it is very, in fact, you would glad to know all of us, the CSR practitioners, CSR policy makers, and the viewers, that we have 80 viewers right now with us. And with the who's who in the panel, I can see that there are Vice Chancellor from Royal Global University, Assam with us. I can see Vice Chancellor, Mizoram University on the panel. So this number tells us that how aware the India community of is becoming as far as CSR emerging story is concerned. So please stay with us as our next esteemed panelist who shall add value to the topic evolution of CSR and ESG, a roller coaster ride or a smooth journey, is the one who has witnessed the growth of CSR journey of BRICS CCI too. So I'm calling Nikhil Pant, CEO of Richa, who at national level, as part of rollout of Section 135 Companies Act 2013 on CSR, led formulation of CSR policy, strategy, rules, and also in the countrywide deployment through advisory, advocacy, consulting, research, and training as Chief Program Executive, National Foundation for CSR of Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. He led key strategic grant-making projects as principal consultant, Tech Mahindra Foundation also, that strengthened the NGO partnership model in a participatory mode of co-creation and development. People, planet, and profit remains central to Nikhil as he engages deeply for social change. So through his work, he seeks to bring a meaningful and engaging convergence of government, corporate, CSR, civil society, in entrepreneurs, social business, academia, and communities in a participatory mode of collaboration, co-creation, and creativity for impact and scale, leading to need-based social change. Nikhil Pant, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Sushi, and a very warm good afternoon to everyone. Dr. Chatterjee, the Guru is here. So, when the Guru is there in the temple of Shaolin, we only bow our heads, and as Gayatri also just spoke before me. For us, it is very nostalgic. And for me personally, I must say, and I don't know if even my colleagues here remember, the first rules were notified on 27th of February 2014, and that happens to be my birthday also. So for me, it was a personal game changer also. We were talking about game changing in CSR for somebody like me who was coming from the Tech Mahindra Foundation. I was working very closely with Anand and Keshav Mahindra and Mr. Vinod C. Khanna, who was the founder of the Tech Mahindra Foundation. And having been part of an NGO myself since 1992, I had worked on the ground and I had worked on grant management, but I had no idea of policy. And that's when I got an opportunity and I got a call from Dr. Chatterjee to come and meet him. And I consulted my dad, who was the former Secretary Government of India himself. He told me, if you get a chance to work with Bhaskar, then forget about a Harvard PhD. Just go there and just learn and immerse yourself. And that turned out to be, as I say, an amazing experience between 2012 to 2017. And subsequent to that, I've been very deeply involved in the actual implementation, because I felt once you've seen policy and have been part of it, it is extremely important to be on the ground to see whether policy is reaching the ground or not. So as part of, when you see the topic, the roller coaster or a smooth one, as Dr. Chatterjee also said, it is not necessarily going to be easy. Some amazing insights have happened, Dr. Sushi and all the colleagues here who are all part of the CSR ecosystem. Amazing synergies can be seen on the ground. And what we all were part of under Dr. Chatterjee's leadership, and my colleagues Gayatri and Gitanjali here would agree, for us, it was a monumental period when you are part of creating history. And then now when you see it on the ground, and as we almost end one decade, we find that initially corporates were hesitant, but they came on board. Then I found that governments are now today very deeply involved in CSR partnerships. And just about last week, I was in Madhya Pradesh. We are looking to sign up a corporate with the government of Madhya Pradesh on 21st century skills, which is the new national education policy. We are finding members of parliament very closely involved in development in their constituencies through CSR. So somewhere CSR has strengthened the democratic fabric in the country, I would say. I am also honored to be working with the Indian Army in Kashmir since the last 6 years, and I'm finding that CSR is playing a very deciding role in Kashmir to integrate it in a very meaningful way with the main country, India, of which Kashmir has always been a part. But interestingly, I'm finding in our project site last couple of years, our staff members who are local Kashmiris have been wishing us Happy Deepavali, Merry Christmas, and they've been, unfurling the national flag at our Chinar Center in Baramulla, which was a very heavily terror-infested area. So when I see this topic today, a roller coaster or a smooth ride or whatever, what I can definitely say, and as we began with Dr. Chatterjee here, I can say it with great confidence, sir, that when we said that it is a game changer, the game changes over a period of time, actually. And you have to allow the game to change. And when you see 10 years, 8 years down the line, because this 27th February, we will hit the 8th year, I'm seeing these amazing transformational changes on the ground. And in many ways, I can say that CSR, in a way, has done a surgical strike on the development sector. Like we did a surgical strike on Balakot. CSR has to be 2%, very minimum amount of money, but very high impact. Very high impact. So it is a game of compliance with impact. And we just had the form CSR2 coming out a couple of days ago, and I'm sure Dr. Chatterjee will talk more about it. Some more interesting insights are going to come from him. When yesterday Gayatri, my colleague, former colleague, and I were discussing Form CSR2, and we were, comparing how it, measures to the amendments a year ago. This is such an amazing legislation, and I remember when sir, we were there at the ministry and at the IICA. It is an amazing depiction of the strength of Indian democracy, I would say. Because in a democracy, we choose our leaders. There are elections unfolding in 5 states today. We choose these people who go to parliament or to the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, Vidhan Parishad. They make laws. And if those laws begin to play on the ground and begin to change the face of the nation, then I think we can say that we can be proud Indians. So today, as we speak on this platform, I feel very honored for being given this opportunity, Dr. Sushi. And we did the first dialogue with you at the India International Center, I remember, with Dr. Rajavardhan Rathod, and Mr. Sinha was there. He couldn't come in. It is an absolutely, it is like it gives you goosebumps. And today we are also conducting trainings, as Gayatri was, also does, and I also do a lot of these trainings that we conduct. We find today, and sir, you would be happy. I remember you saying that when a new legislation came up, like management came and the IIMs happened. Today, I'm finding that there are so many young kids who are in the early 20s who want to take up CSR as a career. And when you see that, when you see the Young India Fellowship in Ashoka, you see a Teach for India, or you see a Gandhi Fellowship from the Piramal Foundation, the young blood which is coming in, it gives us so much of hope and happiness that as we go forward, and the Prime Minister recently mentioned about the next 25 years, which will be the 100 years of India's independence, we feel that we have a good bench strength of very proud Indians who will transform this country, and CSR has a very, very key role to play. And what began as much of roller coaster, I think, is smoothing out a bit. And I think while the roller coaster will continue, but the ones to make it smoother are also there, and that gives us a lot of joy and happiness. So I would like to kind of end my initial narration by saying this, Dr. Sushi, and over to you.
Thanks, Nikhil. Thank you very much. Being a part of the real evolution of CSR ESG for a decade, and your personal game changer, it acted as for you. But we would definitely like to know more about this game changer story in our upcoming series of CSR ESG Dialogue 2.0. And so going ahead, next, bright and bold and beautiful panelist we have with us who dazzle you with her power of speech and persona, Gitanjali Gaur, CSR, Sustainability, Diversity and Inclusion expert. Gitanjali has drafted CSR policy of companies and has also compiled CSR good practices in the form of CSR coffee table book. Currently, she's working with UN Women India, and prior to this, she was working with Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs as program manager and project deputy director, contributing towards policy advisory, capacity building, advocacy on ground project implementation, and other initiatives in the field of CSR. She has worked closely with CSR Rule Drafting Committee on IICA and Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Gitanjali was also invited by Oxford University, UK, to work on a research paper titled CSR Policy Recommendations, the Further Development of India's CSR Policy, with a special emphasis on accounting standard of CSR. Wow. Gitanjali shall throw more light on the same topic, evolution of CSR, a roller coaster ride or a smooth journey. Over to Gitanjali.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Okay, great. So hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be part of this webinar. And seriously, I'm feeling very nostalgic since my journey of CSR started with Gayatri ma'am and DG sir. We still call him DG sir, Dr. Chatterjee. In 2011, sir is my mentor, guru, and guide. So thank you so much for all the opportunities you have given me so far, and of course, this opportunity as well. Thank you, Dr. Sushi. Since we have limited time, so I would like to mention few incidences which were kind of milestone in the evolution process of the CSR from bill to an act, and then the notified rules came into picture, and then amendments and circulars they came. So for me, this journey, of course, CSR journey started in 2011 when Dr. Chatterjee first introduced me with the term strategic CSR. I'm not using the term CSR because CSR, of course, most of us, we have already, I mean, I was familiar with the term CSR, but not with the strategic CSR. So this thing came, yeah, so this thing came into picture when uh, at that point of time, Virappa Moili sir was our Minister of Corporate Affairs, and he asked to work on some development-centric agenda for the country. And I was lucky that sir chose me, and together we were working on the zero version of that. And at that point of time, he actually told me about his journey, about the DP CSR thing, and then I got to know that what this strategic CSR could be, because prior to that, for me, CSR was more of a kind of philanthropic thing. And then moving ahead, I think second incidence or second milestone in the entire journey was when IICA, that is Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, was asked to draft CSR rules. I mean, for Section 135 of Companies Act. And I was also part of it. And we were traveling after working on the first draft of the rules. We were going across the country and taking feedback from corporates. And I still recall our visit to Bangalore at Hotel Taj, where I mean, there was a lot of chaos happened, and we were getting mixed response from corporates. Um, um, there were corporates who were shouting and saying, oh, it is a kind of additional duty or tax on us. And there were corporates who were welcoming the idea. So there was a mixed response, actually. So this second thing happened. And then the third milestone, I guess, was the compilation of the feedback which we received from corporates and NGOs and individuals. So trust me, we received 20,000 feedback from different groups. And it was a Herculean task to compile all these 20,000 feedbacks. But again, thanks to Dr. Chatterjee's leadership, we did it. Why I'm mentioning all these small incidences, because actually these small milestones and success were actually very important for us as a team. And but the journey ahead, of course, was not very easy. The rules came into picture, as Nikhil said, that they got notified in 2018, February 2018, and we celebrated it like anything. But the journey ahead was not very easy for us as a team, of course. We were going around and sensitization was going on, advocacy was going on. We were telling corporates that how to go about it, what this new mandate is all about. And I was appointed as a SPOC, also single point of contact, for addressing all the queries pertaining to this mandate. And I was bombarded with so many queries, I can still recall. Um, but again, we were, I mean, something was going on in our heads, that what about the impact? But the good part was, of course, as I can say again, that Dr. Chatterjee was very visionary in terms of impact also. So he introduced a couple of things in the draft rules very clearly. Like he said, no to checkbook charity. He said no to short-term projects or one-off activities. He said no to welfare, just the employee welfare engaging program or volunteerism. And he said no to bringing back those profits to from the CSR projects. Then he was trying to inculcate the idea of social audits and the reporting, of course, the signing of the report, and the main thing was bringing CSR from backroom to boardroom. So he was quite visionary in that sense. And the next step, which was there for us, which the next milestone I would say was waiting for us, was going for actual implementation. And under Sir's leadership, we started implementing CSR projects on the ground. And trust me, when we went on the site, and especially in very remote areas or remote villages of Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, and when we saw that spark and happiness in the eyes of the beneficiaries, trust me, then we realized that how meaningful this act is. And we were very lucky to be part of this. And so that was a kind of satisfaction which was there, which was there in the entire team, that yes, we did it. And thanks to Sir that he made all of us part of it. And even currently at my new role at UN Women, United Nations Women, where I'm handling diversity, inclusion, and of course some bit of UN Trust Fund. So I can see that how careful the corporates are while selecting their partners, and how innovative they are in terms of selecting their projects. So it gives me a sense of satisfaction that yes, actually the new act is actually serving the purpose. So I'm with this, I would like to close just one point. I want to add that Sir is currently, I guess, pushing the agenda of audit standards and the social auditing concept into the CSR. And I'm looking forward that maybe in future, one of the recommendation I also gave to ministry through my Oxford research work, that one additional line concept should be added in the accounting standards. So looking forward that maybe someday under Sir's guidance that will be added by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And I would like to close with one note that let's work together, Sir, our old team, Gayatri ma'am, Nikhil, everyone, and with new team of BRICS. And let's work together and make this planet more meaningful and more lively place to live, and let's make lives better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gitanjali, and thank you for your generous offer. That really, amazing. You were really amazing, and thank you for letting us know the story of coining of the term strategic CSR by none other than our guru of CSR arena, as Nikhil said, Guru of Chamber of Shaolin, my favorite movie too, and also the term of social auditing, which we were actually many of us might not be aware of, and bringing the CSR audits and reports from backroom to the boardroom. So that was really interesting, and looking forward to that. The next topic of discussion is quite interesting and relevant, as most big philanthropists assume they are engaged with CSR activities, as there is a thin line between the two. And so we have with us Darshan Mandada, the Chief Impact Catalyst, TBL Consulting Services, who shall be speaking on the CSR, ESG, and strategic philanthropy. Darshan, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sushi, and a very good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible loud and clear. It's interesting to look a lot of old faces. By old, I'm surely not hinting at anyone's age, but at faces who've been stalwarts in this space. With Dr. Chatterjee being at the top of it, it's such a pleasure to be on the same dais as you, sir. And as we were discussing yesterday, I think what we are discussing today is corporate social responsibility. And what the interpretation has been in this roller coaster has started with a small segment of it, which is kind of social services. So I think I compliment Dr. Chatterjee that he never called this a CSS. He never said this was corporate social services. He said this is corporate social responsibility. And corporate social responsibility is a huge spectrum of activities. And as Gitanjali earlier said, Dr. Chatterjee didn't only coin that term and created a framework of what could be done. The smartest way to implement it was to say what could not be done and kind of draw those thin lines. And I think that is where we need to start seeing where philanthropy, where charity, where CSR, and where ESG kind of fall on the same spectrum. And I think my role today on this panel is to draw that journey. So I think where journey for CSR, as I understand, starts is in this old philosophy that was articulated by Mahatma Gandhi, but was then further, Mahatma Gandhi was influenced on that philosophy through his readings of John Ruskin, which said, we are after all only trustees of the wealth we possess. And without the community and its resources, there would be little wealth for anyone. So I think that kind of lays out the whole first framework of where this instinct of giving starts. And that instinct of giving is what we call philanthropy. which kind of moves into from personal giving space, which is charity, philanthropy, to the corporate giving space of CSR, to kind of the whole ESG framework, which is actually a way of living. So if you see, if this is all is a spectrum. I give as an institution, and then this becomes my way of life. And compliments to the team who've crafted this journey for the Indian corporate sector. So, so if we look at personal giving or philanthropy, that also gets broken into two parts. The original part is the charity, the original word being the Italian caritas, which was all about to relieve the pain of a particular social problem. To philanthropy, which is actually Greek word, philanthropia, which is about private initiatives for the public good, focusing on quality of life. So when we kind of just cure symptoms or look at symptomatic cure, that is what checkbook philanthropy is. Our checkbook charity is, and move kind of leaving that aside, saying, okay, let us understand what the core problem is. I remember a story here, one of my mentors had said, and it's attributed to many people. The story is that there was two kids playing on the river bank, and they saw a small kid floating down the river. They jump in, remove that baby, bring it out. There's two young men. Then they see two young babies floating down the river. They jump in again and remove those two babies. And this keeps on going on. The number of babies flowing down the river increases. The number of youth jumping to save them increases. A wise old man passes by, looks at them and says, what are you doing? They say, can't you see we are saving these babies? The wise old man looks at the youth and says, has any one of you thought of going upstream and seeing who is actually dropping these babies in the river? And that kind of, for me, is the classic differentiation between checkbook charity and philanthropy. One is where you're curing the symptoms, you're saving. On the other side is where you're trying to solve the root cause of the problem. And when you bring a very professional setup, an ecosystem of a corporate to think on that root cause problem solving issue, that's when it gets into the spectrum of CSR. Then there are multiple adjectives that could be added to CSR. We could say strategic CSR, we could say insightful CSR, we could say SROI-based CSR, impactful CSR. But CSR at the end of the day is this whole spectrum where you look at your business in a more responsible manner and look at all the three bottom lines of how you impact, looking at the impact on people, on the planet, and depending on who you talk with, profit or prosperity, the third word of it. So that's the spectrum of CSR that has currently evolved. What we look at today in this space, or for Indian corporates, is by drawing this law, we have actually created an incentive-based ecosystem saying, okay, while you will have to look at your larger spectrum of responsibility, please ensure that this 2% is going for welfare and well-being in a certain framework, outside the scope of certain activities, so that you're actually benefiting your communities and you're measuring what that benefits are. Once you've done that, then come the frameworks of BRR, business responsibility reporting, or ISR, or the international standards, which say, okay, now that we've done this, how are we running our businesses more responsibly? Are we being efficient, like what Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee is now trying to do in his new role, guiding Vedanta and guiding us on how do we become water positive, how do we become energy neutral, carbon neutral, and how do we go beyond that? Again, as a speaker who spoke earlier than me said, we all can sustain together. We all can sustain individually if we decide to work together. Else, we all will perish individually because of actions done individually. So I think that is where the CSR law comes into place. It brings an uniform playing field for all corporates, says, let us all work together for well-being of individuals, for planets, and let us ensure we still create wealth and add profits. So I think that's been the spectrum of activities that we see. It will be really interesting to see how corporates go beyond the 2% to get and adapt the other guidelines. And as we heard, if it actually gets implemented through SEBI, and sir, let me compliment you. I didn't know that part of the journey where you had to actually bypass the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and go to SEBI. I think that is one of the smartest moves that could be, because once SEBI had imposed it, it became a part of the financial framework, and thus probably a more compliance, not compliance driven, but somewhere where it's inspired more compliance. So that was the smartest move. And I think that gives you all the spectrum of charity to philanthropy to CSR to sustainability. And that was my job. I'll take questions later. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sushi and everyone.
Thank you, Darshan. I really beg your pardon as I had not formally introduced, and then definitely the audience would like to know about you more. So Darshan P. Mandada is an independent professional providing support to HNWI and corporates on their strategic philanthropy and CSR respectively. He has 18 years of work experience, including leading CSR and sustainability for a Sterlite Group and managing various private foundations. Darshan work encompasses development of a 180-bedded super specialty cancer hospital under CSR project for a major corporation and development of mobile medical units, work on nature preservation and water rehabilitation in drought-prone regions of Maharashtra, and many more projects. Currently, Darshan is leading his own firm and is advising projects across the globe. Thank you, Darshan. You really said it very well. And along with our meaningfully engaged viewers, we are actually pouring in with the questions, and I was noting down the questions, and so I just literally got drifted away, but I was able to hear how nicely did you concise the points related to checkbook charity and philanthropy. Kudos. So over to Darshan. From Darshan, now we will be moving ahead with his motivating thoughts. One of the most interesting and much debated topics related to the theme is to find an interface between achieving sustainability goals and CSR activities. And that is going to be discussed by our next panelist, my Harvard Business School Executive Education Program colleague, Raj Gilda. Raj, over to you.
Thank you, Sushi, and pleasure to be on this platform here with everybody, especially because even though my current life involves being in the development sector, my previous life was in the corporate sector. So I think having seen both the sides of the coin, the giver and the receiver, it's very pleasure to hear the discussion so far. And congratulations to Dr. Bhaskar and the team of Gitanjali, Gayatri, and Nikhil, because बोलना बहुत easy होता है. बहुत लोग बातें करते हैं, लेकिन to get such a revolutionary law passed, I'm sure it must have taken such a huge amount of patience, perseverance and persistence on your part. So very happy to know three of you, as well as led by Dr. Chatterjee here. What I would say for us, I run an NGO now called Lend a Hand India for last 10 years. Since living the corporate world and happily unemployed for last 10 years, I can say in the process that for us CSR has been a catalyst in that, because many times what happens is that the conventional funding which is available will go only to the conventional programs. In that there is not much scope for innovation here and otherwise, and you really need to just go with the proven track record, programs with proven track record earlier. And the way we have seen the CSR acting as a catalyst is acting as creating a very demonstrable model for the government. Because at the end of the day, this 2% CSR or any foundation, funding is not going to match the resources and the reach which government has in that. But if this funding can be used to demonstrate what government funding can be put towards the efficiency of the scheme, otherwise that can really lead to much more impact. And just to share with you a very real life example in our case was that there's a three-way partnership between a corporate, JP Morgan Chase, Lend a Hand India, and government of Maharashtra. And this was in 2012-13, when vocational education or skill development was not that much in vogue as it is today. So JP Morgan, as part of the CSR obligation and otherwise, funded us to set up 10 schools in Mumbai and 10 schools in Pune to impart vocational education in high school and in grade 9 to grade 12. So we did that, and in partnership with the state government, having the policy approvals and otherwise too, right? So it was each of us brought the thing which we were good at. The NGO like Lend a Hand India brought the technical expertise of implementation on the ground. JP Morgan brought the capital, and the government of Maharashtra brought the regulatory and policy making power. We're able to show the sort of results with that particular experiment. Then with that particular 20 schools in Mumbai and Pune, the project has scaled up to 650 schools now within Maharashtra itself, with the government funding, and a lot of learning from these pilots were used to make the policy at the state government level. And similarly, now we replicated the same Maharashtra model across 24 states and union territories now, and the model is reaching 10,000 plus schools and about 10 lakhs students, right? So one can really see that this CSR funding can act at such a catalytic level to create such a huge systems-based reform, which will stay much longer beyond Rajgilda or beyond Lend a Hand India or beyond any of us on the call here. And to me, that is the real contribution of CSR here, right? One more aspect which normally is not spoken about, and I would like to bring it here in order to ensure sustainability. Just last week, I spent almost 1 hour with a CEO of a huge industrial group in Pune. He was thinking, how are they going to, do the CSR? What should the group strategy and other things too? And I realized that I'm not sure any CEO of his, group turnover and all that would have spent 1 hour every quarter to know what are the societal problems are outside of his, immediate area of concern of revenue, profit, growth, expansion, acquisition, mergers, and all that, right? And I think getting that kind of a mind space of 1 hour for such a huge, influential decision makers across the countries who are creating thousands of jobs, investing billions of rupees, is phenomenal, a very, very critical impact of the CSR law, which hasn't been captured. We all speak only about the 2%, this much investment, these many crore rupees gone into this sector and all that. But this kind of mind space, and I'm sure that CEO, even if he resigns tomorrow, goes somewhere else, retires and all that, this kind of education which has been created, this kind of awareness about social issues, which has come into play, maybe from compliance point of view today, लेकिन वो उसके साथ रहेगा उसके दिमाग में, right? These are the societal issues. These are the things which need to be taken care of. So whatever business decision he or she may make, whatever personal decision he or she may make in future, will be impacted by this 1 hour every quarter of CSR meeting that he has to undergo, which is sort of mandatory by law today, right? So I think that as we capture other things, it will be great to capture this sort of side effect, but very, very very important effect of the CSR law, which Dr. Chatterjee and his team has been instrumental in getting it. And to me, that is what will actually what actually make the sustainable ESG going forward beyond the law. My hope would be that if such awareness can be created among CEOs and other places too, maybe tomorrow CSR law may not be needed, right? That will be the real success, when themselves are so aware and responsible to do, take the responsibility going forward. So thank you again for such a wonderful opportunity, and look forward to hearing my other fellow panel members. Thanks.
Thank you, Raj, for actually truly quite an eye-opening suggestion, I believe, and for very engaging viewers. I think I need to tell more about Raj. Raj Gilda is the co-founder, Lend a Hand India, and is a banker turned social entrepreneur. He has worked across Asia, Europe, and North America in the field of banking, insurance, and information technology. Prior to moving from corporate sector in 2011 to focus full-time on Lend a Hand India, he spent 10 years in New York working with Citibank and Deloitte Consulting with a focus on CSR activities. Thanks, Raj. In fact, if nobody, but at least me, as a person with a non-profit and for-profit organization, I fully agree with your statement that CSR is acting as a very demonstrative model, really. And so moving ahead, we have another dear colleague from HBS Executive Education Program with us as one of our esteemed panelists who has been working diligently behind the scene to let this dream realize, Mr. Samir Samir Anhale, who shall add value to the topic discussed by Raj, interface between achieving sustainability goals and CSR activities. Samir has worked as CEO of the Thane Smart City Limited, and his work as CEO Thane Smart City also received the National Award for the Digi Thane initiative at the Smart City Mission for 2020. He has also worked as the State Mission Director, Swachh Bharat Mission in the state of Maharashtra, and also worked as an officer on special duty in the State Nodal Officer with the state level nodal agency for the Urban Infrastructure and Governance Commission of the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. His role is to apprise, monitor, fund the 130 urban infrastructure projects of almost rupees 20,000 crores of 13 mission cities, including cities like Mumbai, Pune, Nagpur, etc. As an urban practitioner, he has worked in several cities of Maharashtra in executive and leadership positions and was awarded the Award for Innovation, the Award for Innovation in Municipal Finance for introducing innovative projects in urban transport. Samir, please. So much I had been waiting to hear from you. Over to you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, Sushi ma'am, and the Center of Excellence for CSR and Sustainable Development under BRICS and CCI. Thank you for having a series on a very pertinent topic of CSR. When we engage through the government agencies, the context of Constitution of India is always primary, and the influence of the basic philosophy of the Constitution of India as a democratic and welfare government, amongst others, lays the foundation of most of the legislation, including the Companies Act, as in this case. The triad of fundamental rights, the directive principles of state policies, and the fundamental duties guide crucial aspects in various legislations. And I think the basic framework that we see behind or underlying the Companies Act of 2013, including the very important aspects of CSR, I think emerged out of this very basic philosophy of the Constitution of India and the welfare state that is enshrined in it. I think the framework of CSR, which elevates the moral obligation to legal duties and from legal duties to correlative duties for utilizing the natural and social resources of the society and the ecosystem, were rightly pointed out by my co-panelist Darshan. And the Constitution of India, while offering liberties and protections, also expects duties both from the natural as well as the unnatural person, or is in this case, the legal and corporate entities. Thus, I think the concept of corporate citizenship, the public trust doctrine, has brought in idea of CSR, and that's the reason also we are seeing so much of resonance from the business as well as industry. When we try to look at the synergies between the CSR and the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, we know that the SDGs were adopted on the 25th September 2015 by the 193 countries as a part of the Sustainable Development Agenda. We know that the SDGs have 17 goals and 169 targets and over 330 indicators to be achieved with a time limit, where the time limit is essentially 2030. So one important aspect in SDGs is that we have to work on the time limit. I think despite the paucity of time, I think it is important that we read at least the keywords of the SDGs for the whatever reading habits that we now have. I thought I would just go through the keywords of the SDGs, which is: one is poverty, for the second goal will be hunger, food security, nutrition, for the third health, for the fourth goal education and lifelong learning opportunity, for the fifth gender equality and women empowerment, for the sixth sustainability in water and sanitation, for the seventh energy for all, for the eighth sustainable economic growth, for the ninth the infrastructure, industrialization and innovation, for the 10th reduction in inequality, for the 11th it will be the cities and in safe and sustainable human settlements, for the 12th goal sustainable consumption, for the 13th climate action for combating climate change, for the 14th conserving oceans, seas and marine resources, for the 15th the terrestrial ecosystem and forest and de-desertification, for the 16th peace, access to justice and inclusive institutions, and for 17th the global partnership. I'm sorry for reading it out, but I thought it would be important to at least go through the keywords of the Sustainable Development Goals to keep us aware as to the relevance of the SDGs. Despite the paucity of time, I again would like to read the key words in the 7th schedule of the Companies Act to let us know the rather a lot of synergy that exists between the CS SDGs as well as the activities which are to be done under the Companies Act of 2013, which again activities you will find a lot of resemblance will be hunger, poverty, malnutrition, healthcare, sanitation, safe drinking water, education, skill enhancement, livelihood. We have gender equality. We have got empowerment of women, daycare centers, reduction of inequalities by social and economically backward groups. We have efforts under environment, under sustainability, ecological balance, flora and fauna, quality of soil, air, water. We have national heritage, art, culture, public libraries, arts and handicraft, care for veterans. We have got promotion for rural sports, Paralympic sports, as well as we have got technology incubators, academic institutions, rural development, slum area development, and national relief funds also for the social and economic development. Maybe these words will let us know that there is so much of synergy, so much of opportunity of collaboration between the CSR and SDGs. When we talk of SDGs, we realize that CSR and SDGs evolved in a rather similar time of 2013 to 2015. And I think it most importantly brought an idea of cohesive sustainable growth mindset. We know that CSR also has a lot of resemblance with the framework of SDGs. It in this way allows the corporates in the idea of corporate citizenship to be a part of endeavor to achieve the sustainable development goals. And I think which is important because when we look at the broader GDP of the world, we realize that the contribution of a lot of important and big corporates is as important, as big as the funds available with the government, because the welfare funds of any government will always be a part of their total budget, which is normally 10% of the GDP of a country. So the funds availability under the government, as well as when they come together with the funds availability, the managerial technique, the innovation that can come from the corporate sector, I think is a big way for having great synergy and great collaboration and comparison and cooperative measures between the corporate and the government through the SDGs and the CSRs. One thing I think will be very important to note that there is always a multiple many-to-many correspondence between the SDGs and the CSR. So when you are conducting particular activities under the CSR, you might be achieving multiple SDGs at the same go. So I think this is an additional, in my view, benefit to the corporates that they can, along with their regular activities in government, in business, can also contribute in making idea of shared value a reality. I will just give example of two things. One is, of course, education. When you talk of education, you're simultaneously going together with SDG 1, 2, 4, and 8. So I think this understanding that the CSR activities that are allowed or that needs to be done under the Companies Act do contribute a lot by way of corporate citizenship into the attaining of the SDGs. And I think there has been certain requests to include more components into the CSR activities, but I think would be a part of the legislative domain to work on it. So I think considering the time paucity, I would like to be very brief and just to share the key message that there is a clear synergy, a clear opportunity of cooperation and collaboration between the CSR and the SDGs. So thank you very much, Sushi ma'am. Thank you very much, BRICS CCI Center, for allowing us to share some of our ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you so much for throwing light on our selection of topic of the dialogue. Your statement related to the synergies between CSR and SDGs must be the reason that UN has pushed ESG agenda in the UN forum. More we will be deliberating upon the same in the upcoming parts of sections of the CSR ESG Dialogues Series 2.0 to be held between March to March 2023. So moving ahead, it's time for the most interesting part of the session, Yes, question and cessation. And I request the BRICS CCI Secretariat Head Jaya to put up all the questions gathered from the audience to me on my WhatsApp. Until then, the floor is up for all the panelists for asking relevant questions from our senior most seasoned CSR expert, Dr. Chatterjee. Samir, Raj and Darshan, any one of you have any question from Dr. Chatterjee? Please raise your hands.
Sushi, do you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon again, Dr. Chatterjee. It's a pleasure to be a part of this panel, as I discussed earlier. But one question I have, and you are known to be quite outspoken, so I think I'll be outspoken with my question also. That, sir, when you started with this law and the framework that you created, with the experiences that we heard from your team today, this was very thought through. This was something that you had envisioned as a journey. So if I may ask you, a decade later, where the law is today, with the CSR 2 form being coming out and the compliances being come out and the debate that's happening in the industry, do you see this aligned to your original vision, or would there be any changes you would like to see so that it kind of really frames as what you had seen it? And where do you see this going from here? So it's kind of a two-stage question. And where do you see this going?
That's a very good question, Darshan. Again, for paucity of time, I won't take too much time to answer, but I'll simply say this, that yes, between 1st of April 2014 till now in 2022, it's been, as you said, pretty much like a roller coaster ride. But this experience now has brought us to a time when we are at the crossroads. Let me say that the spirit with which I wrote the legislation was one where I would have liked the corporates to have ample elbow room, bring in creative thinking. In the end, what was the raison d'etre for bringing in the law? What was the reason for it? The only reason was to give corporate India a chance to be involved with the development agenda of the nation. This is the one-line reason why we made the legislation. And I wanted corporates to have, to bring in creative thinking and to engage, as Raj also said, the finest minds in the corporate world, their CEOs, their board representatives. And that's why, as many of my colleagues who were with me when we were evolving the law, the slogan that I gave, backroom to boardroom, which means responsibility and thinking lies with the finest minds in the corporate entity. And so that is the essence of what I wanted to capture. It was not so much about compliance, tick in the box, you spent the 2%, great stuff, I mean, collars up and stuff like that. See, everything can't be just an appeal or just compliance. There is a middle ground that has to be covered, because the heart of the corporate must be in what they're doing. They must see some real cause coming out of it. And today, the great thing about the law is that corporates have taken it upon themselves to not take the law as a compliance issue, but to take it beyond the law, bring it into the culture of the organization. The other part that I see, and it is a bit worrying, because when I see this latest circular of the Corporate Affairs Ministry and the earlier ones, it is going towards a little bit more of regulation, a little bit more of compliance. And maybe it comes out of a compulsion that the leeway that we initially gave them, that time is now over. You cannot now say that the legislation is new, we didn't really know what it was, how do we comply? Now that age is gone, that age of innocence is gone. Today you have to step up and say, yes, we can happily comply with this. And I think Nikhil made that very clear. If you are doing it, then compliance is very easy. It is when you are evading it, then it becomes difficult to fill in these forms. Absolutely. So that's really the sense. And the final point is, as we go forward, I expect that initial trust gap between implementing agencies, the NGOs, so to speak, and the corporate world, I see that diminishing very strongly. Yes. And this two-way process, another pretty popular Chatterjee-ism, which we call the corporatization of the NGOs and the NGOization of corporates. in the dialogue and interface between them, each has given up the spirit to the other. And that is the reason why in the coalescence of the two has emerged a very robust philosophy of CSR. That's my short answer to you, Darshan.
Thank you. That was very candid. I didn't expect that. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I add a line to that? Actually, since being a part of the journey, and then from government, I also moved out to corporate to see the other side of table. So I was heading the CSR and sustainability of HDFC Life. HDFC Life is a very, responsible group, and they were doing good charity, good CSR initiatives. But what I felt was lack of sensitization, lack of awareness. So I still think many corporates who have to do are still not aware of the actual strategization of, CSR, how to put it. So I think partners like BRICS, CCI and others can come together and create more awareness, because you need to tell them it is not compliance. It is something which you are doing good to the society, and you're going to get returns on that, whatever you're doing. So it is important to create a lot of sensitization and awareness platforms like this, so dialogues to be created, so that corporates would know. So it's not about apply or face consequences aspect. It is just the way of looking at things. It is how you see your attitude. So what started with apply or explain has become now apply or face consequences. But I think still a lot of awareness is required. If you know,
in fact, Gayatri,
yeah.
I just wanted to come in also at this point. That's why I raised my hand. And just to answer Darshan, you said, was it thought through and all of that? You said something on those lines. When you were doing this, was it thought through by the team at IICA when you were asking Dr. Chatterjee?
No. My question was this as envisioned, not thought through. Thought through is very different.
That's what
envisioned is different. Thought through is different. Thought through would be very planned.
I would like to add over here that I remember, and again, Dr. Chatterjee, which I also mentioned in my narrative, was that a new thread was coming through this legislation fold. And when I see 8 or 10 years later, there's an army of CSR professionals now in the sector. And any sector will flourish if there is human resource to deliver the mandate. And I think that is something which was envisioned at that time. And I remember we started trainings, and today we find that a lot of younger lot is coming in through various streams, whether a lot of corporate people going into fellowships and a lot of younger lot wanting to join this. So when I mentioned this, there is a good bench strength has evolved. So something which we began almost a decade ago was also, we had thought that this would happen, and Sir would be the best person because he's an HR person as well. And I think so. That was a planning which I think almost a decade later you would be happy to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, NFCSR's all wings, we had 4 major wings. We thought about everything. It was envisioned, whether it was creating an army of CSR professional or creating a database of good implementing agencies, or doing the data analytics part of it, or research and innovation part of it. Everything was thought through and everything was envisioned right in 2013 itself. And today we see that
pretty much strongly kind of on the ground.
It's taking its shape. It's in its own way. And with CSR2 form, it is becoming stringent also, like government is also now, it's on its vigil and want to, see how corporates are faring. So it's both ways. Like we did think, Dr. Chatterjee did think about it, and we were there to, put all his views into architectural form, into creating frameworks, creating guidelines and indicators and parameters. That is what we were doing.
Thank you.
My time. Gayatri, your passion is really, I would say, infectious, and it's contagious. And before I jump on the real questions by audience, it's just pouring in. I had been scribbling. So I definitely need to thank Darshan as well for the brilliant question, because the whole audience, whoever has come to know more about CSR, is going to thank you for the fine question you have put up. And of course, the precise answer, so appropriate, understandable to the masses, for people who do not know about CSR by our guru, Dr. Bhaskar. And thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And Gayatri and Nikhil, you are such a team. Really. In fact, so much to you, you should be knowing that all these deliberations will be going towards making a compendium. And definitely all these, this is going to be really helpful, I believe that, and we'll be talking much more about it in the upcoming series of CSR ESG Dialogue 2.0. So here is the first question which has been given for Nikhil. The question is from one of our member from BRICS CCI. He has given his name as well. And the question is that I would like to know more about the BRICS framework mandate from next financial year for top listed 1,000 companies, how the scoring works for environment, social and governance for the various companies.
For the BRICS thing, I wouldn't be the right person to answer that actually.
No. This is BR, they noted down BRSR framework mandate.
I guess Gayatri would be the right person because my core strength is the CSR. I'm actually totally into the CSR space.
Over to Gayatri then.
Okay. So when these voluntary guidelines were released, am I audible? Yeah.
Yes.
So when these voluntary guidelines were released in 2009, which became national voluntary guidelines on social, environmental, and economic responsibilities of businesses in 2011, when it was released and promoted, the corporates were, were to be told about the business responsibility aspect of it, like governance aspect, environmental, social, and governance aspect of it. And for that only, a framework called business reporting framework was prepared. If NVGs were questions, then BRR was answered because companies were asked to disclose. So when we got the first year answers, because it was a checkbox exercise, it was just, they just had to write yes or no. We saw that the answers, when we were analyzing those answers, we saw that it was a checkbox answer only. That is, in case nobody would say, no, I am not honest, or I do not have a, accounts transparency or accountability. So it was just, the question was, do you have the so-and-so committee? They would say yes, but there was no more disclosure on it. So that is why now with so much of happening in CSR, with so much of happening in corporates, and with the corporate governance practices and procedures in place, a new guidelines, which is a comprehensive and amplification of the BRR, is created by Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs in consonance with SEBI, which is called Business Reporting and Sustainability Reporting. So it includes even the sustainability aspect of it. That is, in case if you have a committee, how do you maintain that committee? What kind of meetings do you have? Who are the members? How they can be contacted? How you are going to put it on the public domain for disclosure? So that BRSR has been released by SEBI. You can find it in public domain, which has been voluntary for this year. From next year onwards, the top 1,000 companies listed on NSE and BSE will have to report on those guidelines which are there, which is called business responsibility and sustainability reporting. So it is based on those 9 principles only of NVGs, but is in a in a detailed format about how have you put those standard operating procedures in place, who is maintaining it, how it is being disseminated, and what impact does it have on the stakeholders.
Oh, thank you so much. That was quite a detailed answer, and I'm sure that the audience must be looking forward to have a comment from the real man, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee.
Yes, this was important for 2 reasons. In fact, I remember just before I left the IICA, we had already got the national voluntary guidelines. But as Gayatri rightly said, 5 years had elapsed since they had been put into operation. So this was time for what at that time I had called BRR 2. And it was subsequently made into BRSR. And I could already see that there was an evolution beyond CSR towards ESG and to the Sustainable Development Goals. You must remember that when we were doing Schedule 7, from which Samir just now read out, we only had the Millennium Development Goals in front of us. So most of Schedule 7 is taken from the MDGs. Now, when we had the expanded version of the MDGs in terms of the SDG and the evolution of ESG, we needed to capture that space also. And that is what I actually wanted to do in what at that time I had called BRR2, which is now BRSR. So what we see in the BRSR is the flowering of that thought, the coalescence of these two streams. And very soon, I think, Gayatri, we're all trying hard for that. It'll go from 1,000 to 5,000 of the top companies, and it will become mandatory from the next year anyway. So that's the context in which we've been moving.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Gayatri. That was, I think, quite satisfying for the appetite of our BRICS members. Surya Sengupta, if you are there, I hope that you have liked it. And there's another question which has come for Gitanjali. On audit of CSR projects, what are the metrics that are being used right now and defined for tracking what corporates and companies are doing? Over to Gitanjali.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of there is something which is there. I mean, day before yesterday, some circular came, and I'm sure after my comment, DG Dr. Chatterjee will definitely add something about it. That besides the AOC 4 form, actually now companies, they are asked to fill one additional thing, and they have to place it in their every year's annual accounting system also, while disclosing it to Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So that is one part. But if you are asking in general, then I must tell you that at the back end, Dr. Chatterjee, along with BSI, they are working on the social audit standards, and even one template of standard standard CSR accounting template was released by ICAI also. But otherwise, in general, what corporates they are doing, they are actually taking it very seriously. There is a separate team in all the corporates who are actually taking account of whether they are spending 2% or not. So it is integral part of their annual financial books. And I think that is it from my end, and that is part of the reporting template as well. So would you like to add something else about the recent circular, if something is left from my side? Over to you, sir.
Yes, Gitanjali. So let me just flesh this out a bit. Gitanjali has hit all the right spots. Two things have happened. Mostly in India and across the world, when you talk about audit, you talk about financial audit. Most auditors who are professional auditors have no exposure to social audit. Social audit is a new stream, and Gitanjali has been pushing that side very well. So what we did was, first we worked with the ICAI, and we said to them that you must begin training of social auditors, or in your audit curriculum, you must also have part of social audit. So on that side, we have now moved forward, and I'm doing a lot of webinars with ICAI now in order to ensure that the audit world is exposed more and more to social audit and how they should go about it. So that's the apex audit body of the country, which has taken this up in a very big way. Number two, for the first time ever on the planet, and I keep saying this, we are trying to now develop independent CSR standards for India. What we have are ISO general standards, which go across and which are pretty nebulous in character. But given the Indian CSR law, what standards can we develop for our own Indian nation in the context of the law? And we are in the final stages of putting it together. We are hoping to publish it very clearly. The reason why I'm mentioning it is part of the CSR standards, general CSR standards, relate to the audit part. And we are going to, from BIS, actually have a panel in which the best auditors of the nation on social audit will be empaneled, and they will be required to take up the audit space. So two very, very big developments there are all coming together. And we will soon find that those who comply with the requirements of the MCA notifications will have very good auditors on board, trained auditors.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Gitanjali. And of course, definitely, we know your role in not only in CSR mandate formulation, but we really did not know that with no exposure to social audits for the auditors existing, you people, in fact, IICA and MCA team together was sitting over there and doing the trainer program for the social audit people. And sir has thrown light over this, in fact, important point. But there are two more questions which I think I need to rush through because there are 10 more questions. But with the paucity of time, yeah, we are running ahead. In fact, we are running late as far as our program is concerned. So we'll be taking only two more questions from the audience, and we'll be closing it. And so, as in fact, from the audience, one important question is that what is the role of CFO with regards to CSR utilization, keeping in mind the function of chartered accountant and company secretary? And this question, I think Nikhil would like to take it. Nikhil Pant. This is an open question. Any one of you panelists?
Well, let me intervene at this stage.
Yes.
The fact is that all of this time that the legislation progressed and the rules progressed, the CFO was more or less kept out of the system. The forms were expected to be signed, the compliances were expected to be signed by the CEO and the chief of the CSR committee. These were the two signatories for all the returns that were going to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. In the last rules, which came out of January of last year, and Gayatri would recall that as well, the CFO has now been asked to certify the reports and returns. The actuality, see, two things have happened. Many people in the corporate world would put out a policy, which would be generic in nature, but they would never state what are the projects that they are actually going to undertake over the next year. So the law has made that, the rules of January 2021 have made it very clear that you must specify the projects. And now at the end of the year, the CFO has to certify that these projects were actually taken up, money was actually spent on them, and we are actually trying to work out what the impact of these programs were. So both from the audit and the finance point of view, the responsibility and the buck stopping, the CFO has brought into the picture in a very big way.
Thank you so much, sir. In fact, there is the last question for all the panelists open. Please raise your hands to deliver the answer and kindly make it precise and open-ended if it requires a long answer. The question is that what is the difference between admin overheads of CSR for a corporate and that of an NGO that is implementing a CSR project?
I'll answer this very quickly, very shortly, and with absolute clarity. This 5% law refers only to the expenses of corporates in what they do for their CSR. I repeat, it applies only to corporates. This 5% does not apply to NGOs. So when they go for projects, their administrative costs can be 20%, 10%, 15%, depending on the project. The answer to that is very clear. NGOs are out of it. It is only corporates who have to ensure that 5% is the amount of the CSR budget, which they cannot use as CSR for their administrative expenses.
Sir, you are always so clear about your statements. In fact, there are a number of questions which we are not going to answer, but we are going to throw it on the stage so that the answers can be collected from all of you, and those answers we are going to utilize it for, in fact, by circulating it to the viewers and those who have asked these particular questions, and also it will go towards making of our compendium. So the questions here are, just please read it. And of course, definitely, I will be sharing it to you on mail as well. How can CSR activities be brought in synchronization with government? Next question is that the big corporation as IBM are helping organizations to accelerate sustainability initiative and achieve environmental goals. How do we measure the same for a current CSR scenario in India? ESB blockchain-based platforms are being created to tackle emerging ESG regulations and compliance challenges. Do we have well-defined CSR reporting platforms and tools to tackle the new challenges for new CSR strategies? Very interesting questions. And the last question, of course, I'm interested in, but cannot answer. 3 major lines of criticism as sustainable development. Sustainability has grown in prominence. Is that the term is too big to in fact, take public attention? Too vague to provide guidance, too late to address the world's problem. So how do we look forward to having a bright interface between achieving sustainability goals and CSR activities? So I think much of this part, I think the question, answer of this part has been given during the discussion, panel discussion, and I think viewers have missed it. But yes, now I would say that it was, at least for me, it was an amazing experience. And now, without wasting any time, I would request the chair of the session, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, to conclude the session. Sir.
Well, thank you very much. What can I say in conclusion? It's been both a roller coaster ride and a smooth journey. And Sushi, you've actually piloted this whole thing so brilliantly. Very, very happy to interact with the BRICS, the higher leadership, and also with the Center for Excellence. It was such a wonderful experience to recall, as Gitanjali also put it, the milestones. Gayatri, Nikhil, Gitanjali, remarkably well enunciated as always, so articulate in explaining how the passion of that times engulfed us all and how we tried our best to think through on everything. Darshan, Raj, Samir, all of you were just simply outstanding. The perspectives you gave us contributed to the way in which we set ourselves very high standards for this today's webinar. I certainly hope all the participants enjoyed it as much as we did. Before I finally conclude, just one last thing which Sushi told me to ensure that I say is that this new CSR Form 2 that has come out just a couple of days ago, a very detailed format in which companies have to provide, details on virtually all the projects that they undertake. But also now we are looking at things from the government perspective, which we never ever thought in 2014 would happen too quickly. One, we are going to use more and more artificial intelligence to actually track projects happening on the ground. And that is, I didn't know that the government was equipped with all those tools so quickly. And when I heard this question about blockchain and stuff for which we are at all, the straight answer is we're not at all ready yet. So that will evolve over time. So the whole technology ecosystem around everything, not just CSR, not just ESG, is changing rapidly. And one of the issues which we will address in the next series of talks that we have will address some of these issues. So thank you everybody for giving us this very, very wonderful opportunity. And we hope to be engaged in future events as well. Thank you, Sushi.
Thank you, sir. Actually, literally, this dialogue series would not have been possible without your support and vision. Now it is time to say goodbye and wind up the CSR ESG Dialogue Series 2.0. Trust the deliberations of a dialogue series will culminate into a knowledge product worthy enough to be a guide and resource material to provide strategic direction to the development of inclusive and holistic CSR practices. Now, may I request to our Vice Chairman, Shri Ashok Kumar Singh, as renowned industrialist and philanthropist himself, to grace the event by proposing vote of thanks. Mr. Singh, please.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm Ashok Kumar Singh, the Vice Chairman of BRICS CCI. Is always being assigned with this simple yet delightful job of giving away a lot of thanks to a number of wonderful people gathered together virtually or in person for a wonderful cause. And I indeed love doing it, as I believe life is worth if lived with gratitude. First of all, I would like to thank every panelist for bringing their expertise and experience around the table and engaging in such fruitful and constructive dialogue series. Special thanks to the chair of the session, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, of the fame of being father of CSR in India, and also to our president of Center of Excellence in CSR and Sustainable Development, BRICS CCI, Dr. Sushi Singh, for collating and processing this wonderful CSR ESG dialogue series. Her colleagues from Harvard Business School, Executive Education, Samir Anhale, Mr. Raj Gilda, and Mr. Darshan Mandara need a special mention who facilitated a restart of the CSR journey of our chamber. I must acknowledge that a lot of ground was covered across the various people from various work streams, especially panelists from Ministry of Corporate Affairs background, Mr. Nikhil Pant, Mr. Gayatri Subramaniam, and Gitanjali Gaur, who brought much needed facts on the table over the last 2 hours, and the agenda of the dialogue became depending to include a thematic dialogue built around strategy, discussion of various pertinent facts. To begin with the series 2, BRICS CCI always look forward to be associating with them. As always, I would say that there is still room for improvement, and adjustment will be made to reflect the points raised during the discussion. But I understand further work will be more of a discussion and further different aspects of the theme, which is quite relevant to achieve socio-economic and environmental development goals of our nation as a powerful member of BRICS and emerging economies. Thank you, organizer, and most importantly, our lovely audience for your active participation and inputs. Looking forward to see you all shortly with more interactive and interesting dialogues. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for your much needed support and care always. You are always there when we look forward to. Now I request DDG BRICS CCI Jaya Singh to provide necessary information related to the event, along with the welcome address, which we missed by our beloved chairman, Mr. Biswas Tripathi ji. Thanks to you all. Thanking is not enough, but we look forward to have this collaboration going on. So see you shortly with Dialogue Series 2.0 next part. Until then, have a great day and year ahead. Over to Jaya.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And after our very interesting discussion, I'd like to share with our audience that the entire program will be available for you to watch again and to take out the important information that was shared today on the Chamber's YouTube channel. And since we have our chairman has taken time to record his message and send to us, I will just request the team at the Chamber to please play his message.
Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests and friends from industry and media. It gives me great pleasure to extend to you all a very warm welcome on behalf of the BRICS CCI. Thank you very much for taking time to join us today for the India BRICS CSR ESG Update Dialogue Series 2.0 with a theme on CSR Insights of the Decade Today and Tomorrow. Corporate social responsibility as on date, has so much value considering the environmental, social, and nation building matters. And we at BRICS nations, BRICS friendly nations, and BRICS neighboring nations, we are at the forefront of the same, not from today, but since last many years. Corporate social responsibility is that whatever a corporate earns from the support of the society, from the people, from the environment, from the nature. So there is a responsibility for corporates also to share the part of profits with the people from whom they have there is a responsibility for corporates also to share the profits, a part of profits, with the people from whom they have earned the same. As we know that in all religions or cultures, whether it is Hinduism, whether it is Christianity, whether it is Islam, in Hinduism, they say that the chance has to be donated. In Christianity, the very culture is based on service to the people. In Muslims, as we all know, there is a system of zakat. So it is all ingrained in our culture, and it is it should be the effort of all the corporates, not only corporates, everybody, that how from academia, from businesses, government, civil society, trade unions, and others from the various sections of society. The diversity reflects that today is going to be a very great session. However, none of this would be possible without the support of our speakers, stakeholders, partners, and viewers. I am so pleased to thank, please allow me to thank all our people, especially Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, whose name needs no introduction, for his selfless support to BRICS CCI work and this panel discussion. I would also like to extend a special welcome to our founder DG, Dr. BBL Madhukar, whose untiring effort for the social causes is well known. I will be failing in my duty if I don't take the contribution and the name of Dr. Ashok Kumar Singh, an industrialist and a philanthropist. And I truly appreciate efforts of our organizer and a hearty welcome to its president, Dr. Sushi Singh, without whose support this panel discussion would not have become possible. She is president of Center for CSR and CSR, and at the same time, her HBS, Harvard Business School academic executive colleagues, Samir Unhale, Raj Gilda, Darshan Mandana, and IICA pharma executives, well-known CR experts that we have among us, Gayatri Subramaniam, Nikhil Pantji, and Gitanjali Gaur, without whose knowledge and contribution and experience and expertise this discussion would not have been possible. In the end, I would like to thank our viewers, our media people, our participants, everybody, with a Hindi couplet that explains the rationale and need for CSR activities that we used to say, Pani baadhe nao mein, घर में बाढ़े दाम, दोनों हाथ उलीचिए, यही संतन के काम. With these words, उलीचिए, यही संतन के काम. With these words, I once again welcome all the panelists, participants, viewers, stakeholders, partners, our secretariat colleagues, and especially Dr. Sufi Singh. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for playing that for us. Back to Sushi ma'am.
It's time to say goodbye once again, and thank you everyone. Thanks once again for being a part of the journey which we have restarted after a good gap of 4 years, and we look forward to having your support and unflinching support and care in our next sessions. We are sure that we will be having your blessings always. And thanks to our Director General BRICS CCI, who is always there. Sir, you are brilliant. And Dr. Chatterjee, I have no words to say, and just salute. and all the panelists, our friends, let's take it further. And let's show that this synergy can really work out in a great work ahead, which is I'm really looking forward to having a compendium release towards the end of the session, 2030 March 2023. And thank you very much once again. Taking your leave. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Now, very